Hey everyone, welcome back. This is the At the Kitchen Table podcast, episode number 4. I'm Jason Klink, your host. And in this episode, I'm sitting down with Ben Gray. And Ben and I are going to discuss what it takes to build a sustainable business, let alone a real estate business. Not one that just produces sales, but one that can grow, serve your clients well, support your staff or your team members, and avoid any kind of burnout issues. Ben is a licensed real estate agent for the last 25-ish years.
No,
No,
2009.
2009. I'm not doing my math right.
2009.
So he currently leads the team at EXP Realty. They do well over 100 transactions per year. He does have a background in hospitality and wellness and nonprofit leadership. Ben is known for his people-first approach to business and client service. He mentors and coaches other real estate agents and real estate brokers across the country. So Ben, thank you. I appreciate your time and welcome to the kitchen table.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I love the approach of just having a casual conversation, so I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. And that's so I roll with these things, but with my previous podcast and this current one, it's just the idea of sitting around and well, if you have a beverage or not, and having a conversation. And you and I have known each other for a few years now. I was at EXP Realty for a short period of time, but we've had different interactions, and I was fortunate enough to pick your brain on a number of occasions on the real estate business and, how to scale and build sustainability. I guess, and, kind of the 800-pound monkey in the room is with the current real estate market that's in central New York, as challenging as it is. Do you see anything that stands out more than anything else when it comes to owning your own personal real estate business? It doesn't matter if you're part of a brokerage, your business is your business. Anything that stands out as far as working and building what you need to build in today's crazy real estate market.
I think the biggest thing that stands out is, people really need to focus on profitability because it's too easy. There's so many things as business owners that want to vie for our money. They've got our hands in their hands in our pockets. And so they're constantly like, hey, try this new thing. Hey, here's this. Hey, I'm going to give you this lead and I want this percentage of referral fee. And so really trying to build a business profitably is something that needs to be focused on because it's too easy just to spend money, especially when you're making money. When you're doing transactions and you're making money and the money's coming in, you're like, yeah, $100 here, $200 a month here. And if you don't really keep an eye on those expenses, you get to the end of the year and you're like, I worked, and maybe you made a ton of money, but you probably didn't put as much money in your pocket as you thought. And most of the agents I talk to, like, they have no clue how much they spend. They know how much they make in the top line, but they have no idea how much they actually spend on their monthly or annual expenses.
Wow. That's interesting you said that because, when I first started in this business, I initially treated it as another part-time job. It's kind of like what you're saying. You didn't know anything coming in, going out. And then I realized and learned real quickly that the important part is the finance, profit and expense, profit and loss, whatever you want to call it. And ultimately making sure you pay yourself above and beyond, obviously saving aside for taxes and, non-operating costs or whatever it might be. But that's wild that still in 2026 that, people aren't treating it as their business, no matter if they're at a brokerage or not.
Well, a lot of people don't expect to be busy, so they don't think about paying those taxes, and they might stumble into something and have some immediate success, but they don't pay themselves and they're not paying taxes. And most real estate agents are paying last year's taxes this year, and it's just a tough place to live.
Yeah.
I talked to an agent recently and they were asking some advice about, should I spend money on this marketing? And we talked a little bit, and then come to find out they have $30,000 that they're paying in 2023 taxes.
Ooh.
And so it's really hard to operate a business when you're focused on paying things in the rears.
Yeah, and I was, again, a lot of lessons learned when you get into business, when you get into real estate. And when I started, one of the first lessons I learned was from my team leader and mentor when I got into the business. And he had the unfortunate situation of not setting aside for taxes, and the next year it was like, oh, here's your tax bill, now you got to pay it. And I filed that away to make sure that, all right, what do I need to set aside for taxes, for operating expenses, and so on, as well as making sure I get the right amount of profit. I took it was a percentage formula from Jarrett James, and he has this whole 25% for taxes, 10% for this, 40% for you, blah 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 blah. And I've worked by that framework, and it's worked pretty well to be able to make sure that the monies go where the monies need to go. So interestingly enough, you do have your background in hospitality, wellness, nonprofits. Do you see what your past experience has kind of blended well with your real estate business and how that influenced your real estate business?
Yeah, I think, real estate can be broken up into two things. Some people call it a sales business, and 100% it is sales, and we can dive into that later. But it's also people business. We're dealing with people. And so
Right.
my background, from an early age, I was working in hospitality, whether it be working, washing dishes in a kitchen or waiting tables or bartending. And you're just dealing with people.
Yeah.
And so having that people experience, sometimes it's great experience, sometimes it's really challenging experiences. And then from there, I moved into the wellness space for 9 years. I was a licensed massage therapist. And in that world, I worked in Newport Beach, California. Some of the wealthiest people in the world were living there. And then I worked for a private club. And so we'd have these people come in from all around the world and stay at the club and get massage therapy. And so I was around some of these people, and some of them, some of them were, I'd call them celebrities, people that you probably know by name. And some of them were the nicest people, most down to earth people. And then some of them were actually really, tough to work with and pretty rude. And a lot of that came from, their entitled background. But again, you're dealing with people. Yep. And so having those people skills translates into, our current business. And then for a short time, I got into nonprofit work, and I was working for a local church. And then I worked for our local rescue mission, homeless shelter. And so, I'd gone from working with some of the wealthiest people in the country to some of the unwealthiest people in the country. And how are you dealing with those two extremes taught me a lot about just, caring for people in every situation. Then when you get into real estate and you realize you're dealing with a couple that's getting divorced, you need to sell their house, or you're dealing with people, that are downsizing, maybe they lost a family member and they need to downsize. And so having that background working with a wide range of people has, I think one of the reasons that we've been successful in real estate is, knowing how to work with everybody has been key for us.
Yeah. And I can definitely get on board with that. And it's funny because I come from a public safety background. I was of service to the public all the time. And which I think helped me manage relationships better, because I could have conversations and extract information, even though I'm having a conversation, extract the information that I'm looking for, convey the right amount of information. But you're 100% right, because, no two clients are the same. They may have similar needs or wants when it comes to buying or selling a home, but they're not typically the same, because the story could be wrong. You hit on it. It could be divorce. It could be a death of a family member. It could be, hey, we have 2 kids and now we have another one on the way, and we need 1,000 more square feet. So yeah, it's definitely about, and I'm sure you have, like I have run across those agents in the business that are about the contracts. They are just about the profit and how much closings, how many closings can they have, and add to their tally that they. I've never been able to shift that mindset to that. It's always all right. And I just, something I've adopted that I learned along my way here is, what can I do for you today? Is there anything I can do for you? If not, okay, I'll check again another time and kind of leave it there. So, thinking about the business and I think that really speaks to like, got to hustle, always got to hustle and find the next dollar and, falling into I say a trap, but maybe more of a pigeonhole of work as many hours as possible, sacrificing your personal time and not having boundaries. And, that's another thing I couldn't buy in on. My day for my own sanity has to start and end at some point. And there's triggers that I'm a creature of habit. There's triggers of start and end. But like I've worked with agents that they're sending offers at 11:30 at night. It's like, what are we doing? So, your thoughts? What do you think about the hustle? We have to work as many hours as possible every day and generate as many dollars as possible.
Yeah. I mean, first I'll say to each his own,
Yeah.
I'm not going to criticize anybody. I look at it like sprint, run, jog, walk. And there's a time to sprint, and there's a time for me, at least, I've got to get this stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a time, to go from that sprint to just, let me do it at a different pace and jog. And then sometimes I just need to go out for a walk. And that for me is like, I'm going away, or, I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb. But one of the things that I think what bothers me is if it's expected that I work these long hours. If you want to do it, that's fine.
Yep.
But I personally, if I'm doing a listing and we have multiple offers, I'm not setting a deadline at Sunday 2 p.m. so I can review the offers with my client Sundays at 3 or 4, because I don't want to be working Sunday at 3 or 4. And so again, if agents do, that's their prerogative.
Right.
But I think for a lot of people, like, we're in an industry that it gets busy. It's seasonality. Yep. So I probably work more hours in the spring and the summer, and then I pull back a little bit. And so I think everybody has to find their rhythm. At the same time, don't expect your rhythm to be somebody else's rhythm.
Right.
And if somebody else says, hey, I'll get back to you tomorrow, then they'll get back to you tomorrow.
Right.
I was just yesterday, I was doing something with my son, who is a high school junior, and we're getting him signed up for his driving classes. And my phone is blowing up from an agent that I'm doing a deal with. And I said, hey, can I call you later? And the agent said, no, we need to talk about this right now. And okay. So I told my son, hey, let me take this and, see what's going on. And I called the agent, and clearly it didn't need to be talked about right now. It could have been talked about 20 or 30 minutes later when I was done what I was doing. And so, don't put your expectations on somebody else. But, if you want to work 80 hours a week, I had a conversation with a friend today, and, my daughter is in college. She's going to be, moving out of the house soon. My son is a junior. He'll be graduating next year. And sometimes I'm a little nervous about what happens when my kids are out of the house. And Jason, you'll be there at some point. Am I just going to be bored and be like, well, I might as well work?
Yeah.
But so I can see how, there's some agents in the business that they don't really have anything else. Like their work, their agents, their clients, that's their community. And if they can do it 60 hours a week, that's fine. But, don't expect everybody to operate on those rules.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%. And, going back to what you said of expectation of something needs to be taken care of right now. Well, chances are whatever needs to be taken care of, that person's not going to catch on fire in 20, 30 minutes, in 12 hours, whatever it might be. But, let the circumstances dictate, I guess.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I think that speaks to work effort, hours, whatever. Work effort speaks to building a business that grows, building systems that are scalable and repeatable. I think a lot of us forget that part, that they have to be scalable and repeatable. Creating consistency, allowing yourself to, going back to that customer relationships of building customers for life or clients for life, that they always come to you when they have, and it doesn't matter if it's real estate or hospitality, they're coming back to you because they like, know, and trust you enough that now you have that client or customer for life. Um, what have you seen that are probably some of the more successful, systems, practices, best practices, in real estate or otherwise, that really allow to build businesses that are scalable and repeatable?
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on the term client for life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really, really important. Some people will say my past clients, we try not to use that term because they're our clients. Like they're
Right.
not a past. We've transacted with them in the past and we'll transact with them in the future. But
Mm-hmm.
having that vision that these are our clients for life and setting up systems to make sure they are our clients for life. If I help a buyer purchase a home and they need to sell the home in the next 3 to 5 years, I want to be the one that they call to sell the home.
Oh yeah.
And if I'm not, I want to know that there was a good reason for something. Maybe there was a relocation package that they took if they used a certain agent or something. And so those are critical systems, one for profitability,
Yep.
but two for keeping the revenue up. So if I helped 100 clients last year, and I know they're going to move every 3 to 5 years, I should be stacking future business.
Right.
And so many agents in real estate and probably other business, they see it as just like a one-time transaction and then they're done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to build something sustainable, you need to focus on that. And it's more than just, oh, yes, I stay in touch with my clients or my past clients. It's you have to have systems because you can stay in touch with 4 or 5 people in your first year, or maybe in your second year. But as it grows and you're like, now you have 350 past clients, how are you going to stay in touch with all them if you don't have it systematized?
It's so interesting you say that because, I've been in real estate 9 years now. So, and like you said, I could keep track of or stay in touch with those clients I had, year to year, maybe year to 2 years. But it would be difficult to, well, I mean, I say difficult, but it's an extra layer to be able to keep going back 9 and 10 years. I use a system where everybody in my database gets a newsletter weekly. Every week on a Tuesday, they get a newsletter from us, with some real estate info, some local info, and that's the touch point. But I've also seen where I've switched from brokerage to brokerage, and because databases are different and touch points and using CRM is different. I've had clients that I've missed having those regular touch points because of that change. And I've had clients that they bought their house with me, but now we're 5 years later and they're selling it with someone else. And it's like, uh-oh, I missed the boat there somewhere.
Yeah, and a lot of people say, people that I meet or coaching clients are like, well, I just, I call people whenever I feel like, I think of them and stuff, and that's good.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. When we talk about systems, it doesn't mean that it's automated and robotic. Some of it is automated,
Right.
but some of the automations now, like a lot of those emails that you get, I get emails from a lot of lenders and they go straight to spam
Right.
because their systems aren't set up correctly. So a couple of things that we do. One, I have a CRM outside of my brokerage. I've had the same CRM since 2017. I'll never change because I know how to use it and I actually use it.
Yeah.
Maybe at a high level, maybe not. But so not adopting the brokerage CRM because if you move, you lose all that stuff.
Yep.
But the other thing that we invested in is a really good email service
Mm-hmm.
so that we know without a shadow of a doubt that all of our emails are landing in the inbox and not going to spam.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are types of systems that we can set up some automation. And I use leverage to get all of this stuff done. But so I have other people doing it for me. But then we also have we have a 60 touch plan where some of it's automated emails, some of it is like, I generate the emails, somebody else sends it. And then some of those are phone calls or text messages and postcards and newsletters. But making sure that you have that all written out in a plan of this is how it gets done. Are we perfect at it? Probably not, but we're pretty darn good.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And the proof is in the data. And if you don't have the opportunity to see that kind of data like you are with your emails and making sure that those touch points are landing in inboxes and not spam boxes, um, is it gives you that power to be able to say, recognize when somebody hit that 5-year mark and they're ready to sell, or recognize that maybe they were looking for information from someone else, whatever it might be. And yeah, and it's one of the things, another learned lesson for me was like, if you're not seen, you're unseen.
Yeah.
And so if they don't know you're still there, then they don't know to come back to you when they have a need.
Yeah, Jason, one of the biggest things that we've done, and this was tough for me, we invested in quarterly gifting
Mm-hmm.
for some of our clients. Now I've got, a lot of clients that we've worked with in the past. And so I can't put everybody on this, so we'll rotate it. But sending out these gifts, like if you just get a random gift, and they're nice gifts. I mean, they, probably $30 to $40 gifts that we send out.
Yeah.
And that really keeps us top of mind with people, plus all of the other things that we do.
Right.
So when, people ask me, like, hey, are you buying these leads? Are you spending this? And a lot of that stuff it's just a huge waste when you take care of the people that know, like, and trust you. It's one, very profitable business.
Right.
And two, it's just fun.
Yeah.
44% of our business last year came from past clients or our sphere of influence that referred us to people.
Yep.
And that's how we're able to be so profitable, is because we're not spending a lot of silly money on, lead generation tools that don't work great.
Yeah. And I take a lot of value in that. I take a lot of value in working with your sphere, your people, your database, your whatever you want to call it, versus spending tens of thousands of dollars in, lead generation.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's like when you're doing that, you're starting a relationship over every time from scratch versus a relationship that you've already worked on and you've already built on. So if they're still interacting with you, then it leads to that trust factor. I've always had a difficult time wrapping my head around spending tens of thousands of dollars in lead generation. I'd rather take that money or that time and put it into, social media and that kind of doing stuff like this, in order to build that trust factor organically versus just buying it, so to say.
Yeah. Here's the numbers for us in 2023. I haven't looked, 2023. Yeah. 2023, we spent $18,000 on our database, marketing to the database, staying in touch with the database. Marketing might sound bad, but staying in touch with the database. That $18,000 returned us $287,000 in gross commission income.
Wow.
And so when I get, this website call me saying, hey, this is the latest and greatest, or this website call me saying, hey, I can get you this many connects and stuff, I just always point back to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to double down. And so for any agent that is listening to this, like, you have your sphere of influence, make it bigger, and then just stay in touch with them more, and you will never go hungry.
That's awesome. Great golden nugget right there. So if anybody listening or watching, you write that one down. When you got into the business, were you always looking to be a team leader, to have your own team, to grow a team, or was it just something you kind of grew into or fell into?
Yeah. So I was locally in our market, there's something called the Syracuse Land Bank, and
Hmm.
it's the default recipient of tax foreclosed properties in the city of Syracuse, New York. And so I was the director of operations there, and I had a background in working with distressed properties. And so what had happened was there was a retiring broker locally. I took over his brokerage, and he did primarily bank foreclosures.
Hmm.
And so I got into that business, and I honestly didn't know where it was going to lead me. I had enough of the nonprofit, kind of got squeezed on, income and things like that. So when I joined it, when I took over this brokerage, my goal was just to, at the time, I wanted to work for myself, kind of set the schedule, make as much money as I wanted to make. And then as I started, because I had never worked for a traditional real estate brokerage. I had my license. I worked for a traditional real estate brokerage in Massachusetts for a short period before I got into the nonprofit world. Um, and so I just realized after kind of learning the real estate industry, the kind of traditional real estate industry, I was losing out on a lot of business because I was so busy managing, 100 foreclosures at a
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
And talking with a mentor of mine, he said, "Hey, you need to bring on a buyer's agent." And then from there, the team concept just kind of came like, "Hey, we can actually generate a lot more business than we are because of the tools that we had." And so, it was kind of in that, first year or two that I was running that brokerage that I realized, hey, I don't want to do this all on my own. And I learned the concept of leverage at that point. And so leverage isn't me making money off you. Leverage is us both making money because
Right.
of the resources that we have.
Right. Interesting. Good stuff. So obviously you've over time picked up different leadership skills. Um, is there any, source of leadership that you gravitate towards more than other ones, or have you kind of built it organically from a little bit of this, a little bit of that?
I mean, I would say I'm kind of that servant leader. If anything,
Hmm.
I'll never ask somebody to do something that I won't do, and so I have no problems doing anything, whether it's, clean the toilets, I'll, go run the errands. But because that's that, the leaders that I've been around, those are the ones that have impacted me the most. Where, I worked for this very well-known hotel general manager. He'd go into these hotels and turn them around. And when I worked for this private club in California, he came in when the club opened up, and he got us, top, you know, stars and diamond awards, all that kind of stuff. And I saw this guy, his name was Henry Sheenline. He was just a great leader. And you would see him in the lobbies, going into the bathrooms, wiping things down.
Mm.
And really, he was running a very, big organization, but you would see him first thing in the morning doing the work that he didn't need to do. And that spoke a lot to me. And so, that's kind of how I've modeled my leadership is, if you're on our team and I'm asking you to make phone calls to our leads, I'm going to be doing it alongside you. I'm not,
Right.
even though I don't really need to, because I have this business that's already kind of generating more business. But if I'm asking you to do something, I'm going to do it as well.
That resonates so well. I was fortunate enough to, in one of my previous podcasts, fortunate enough to have Howard Behar as a guest. He's one of the original founders and presidents of Starbucks. And, he wrote a book, but one of the things he says is those who push the broom get to make the decisions. Don't be making decisions until you've pushed the broom or cleaned the toilet or whatever it might be. And he's very much about, um, uh, you know, uh, being a servant of people, service of others, and so on. I took a lot away from a conversation with him, reading his book, and reading and learning from other very successful business owners on how they um, are able to put those in play that have the know and know how to do, and then let's all come together and do it together, and having that ownership in every aspect of the business, not just your little bubble in the business.
Yeah, and as a leader, you get so much more buy-in from everybody in the organization when you do those things.
For sure. And realistically, in this market, the way it is, I mean, we've been on a rocket ship since 2021 that hasn't come down yet, and it seemed to found its new source of fuel because it's taken off again. How are you, based on your business being so successful and everything that you've built, how are you helping your clients navigate what's going on right now, which may be different from even just 2 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's a little bit different, so you have to look at their needs and where they're at. But I think one of the biggest things that we're talking to our clients right now is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, because there's fear of overpaying, there's fear of buying the wrong house, and just in its core, fear is so detrimental to our lives. So like, if you buy a house and it's not the perfect fit, well, what's the worst that can happen? You just decide to sell it, and you sell it. It's not the end of the world. And if you overpay, whatever that means to you, like, who cares? Like, if you're going to be in the home for a few years, that equity from the appreciation is going to catch up to you.
Yeah.
And so really helping our clients just not be fearful, because, there's a lot of it around. So that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. And I think that comes straight from like misinformation, the misinformation you might see on the nightly news, or, somebody might say something that's, incorrect. Buying into you got to buy right now because mortgage rates are just going to keep going higher. Well, they go up and they come down. It's making the right choice for you at the right time.
Or the buy now because as soon as rates drop, the prices are going to go up. And there's so much, we call it FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. There's so much in our world right now that you have to kind of set that aside. You isolate the fear, look at just what's reality. Reality is you need a house. Like, let's find you a house. Reality is you need to sell. Let's get the house ready to sell, and don't try and time everything for the market.
Right.
If you could, and listen, I've got fears, right, that I work through, but just in general, if you can kind of learn to put those fears aside and just live life in a different way, it's so much better.
And you mentioned something there, and it kind of goes to the flip side of this market is so difficult to work in, and you have a team of agents. What are you doing for your agent that feels overwhelmed because they keep putting in offer after offer after offer for their buyer, and they keep getting into multiple offer situations of 20 and 30, and the buyer just can't win, and this isn't working, I want to give up.
Yeah. You know what? I learned a really valuable lesson, and it's humbling for me to say this. So I'm going to be a little vulnerable here. Our team was doing well. I had some great agents on the team, great agents. And I was asked to be a real estate coach for a company that I'd hired this company to coach me. I had some success with them. They said, hey, would you help us? Would you help coach other people? And so my team was running really, really well. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. I kind of get this excitement or this dopamine hit off of helping other people, right? And so I started doing that, and it took off even more than I expected. So I took on a huge coaching client load. And I was disconnected from the realities of working in the real estate market for a little bit. I had my listings and stuff, but a lot of that was leveraged through the people that I was working with. And so I was not doing much in my team at the time, and just doing a lot of real estate coaching. And so these couple of agents on my team, they came to me and they said, hey, we're leaving the team. And a big part of it, Jason, was I did two things. One, I didn't care for them like a good leader should. And that really hurts me to say it, but it taught me a lesson that I hope to never duplicate. And then the other thing was I wasn't like in that day to day. And so I didn't have any concept of like how hard it was. So I wish I wouldn't have had to learn that lesson, but I did. And
Yeah.
so, to those agents, I've apologized and, you know, realized it was my fault. So since then, I've cut way back on the coaching. Coaching was a lot of fun, but, my team is number one.
Yeah.
And I've started to take on some buyers so that again, going back to that servant leader, if I'm asking you to do something, I'm going to do it too. So I've taken on some buyers and I've had, the huge hassle of getting beat out. And so what I've done is just say, hey, I know
Yeah.
how it is,
Yeah.
as opposed to me sitting, doing all these other things, not working with buyers and just trying to pat them on the back and say it'll be okay. I'm going out and I'm with my clients as they get their teeth kicked in. And so you can't complain to me as much because I'm doing it too,
Right. Right. Yeah. And if we're not learning, we're not growing. And I think year to year, running a business, real estate or otherwise, you're picking up lessons as you go along. Stuff that you may have forgotten about and went, oh yeah, I should be doing that because that worked before. And I let that go. And now it's causing this other ripple effect. So yeah, I can definitely see where if you're not doing the deed, as they say, how can you expect anybody else to respond to your leadership if you're not doing the deed?
Yeah, you have to be tuned into what's going on. And unfortunately, I got a little tuned out and I got comfortable because my team was just good. I have good people. I have pretty good systems. And I, so I learned that lesson, hope to never return to that place.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, I think that's a great place to leave it. But one last thing I wanted to ask is when people are watching or listening to this, what's the one thing you would want them to take away from, building a sustainable business, real estate business or otherwise?
I think you have to have systems. And so I remember there's a quote in the book, Atomic Habits, and it says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And I knew that was important, but I didn't know what real estate systems looked like. And so let me just break down the 4 key areas that we talk about in the coaching world. You have to have systems to attract leads.
Mm-hmm.
That's number 1, attract. You have to have systems to convert those leads. So that's number 2. You have to have systems to deliver a world-class experience. And then you have to have systems to scale that, going from 10 deals to 50 to 100. So attract, convert, deliver, and scale are the 4 areas that we look at. And under each area, there's some key systems that you want to start with, the easiest, most profitable, and kind of work your way down. And that really goes for any business. I need to attract, convert, deliver, and scale. And so if you look at your real estate business like that, whether you're a solo agent or you're just getting into the business, maybe working with a mentor or mentee, or you're running a team, like you need to attract, convert, deliver, and scale.
That's awesome. Another golden nugget. Hope everybody wrote that down. Well, Ben, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down at the kitchen table to have this discussion. I think this is something we could probably go on for 2-3 hours. Just not at the Joe Rogan level yet.
Not there.
not there yet.
You know who also does crazy ones that I was listening to recently? Sean Ryan. That guy will do like 2 to 3 hour.
Yeah.
And his can get a little dark, so I can't.
Yeah.
His goes off into crazy land sometimes. Great interviewer, but those are long.
Well, it always makes me laugh how long they like. Don't they need a bathroom break in 2 hours, let alone sit there and do a podcast for 3? Yeah. So, with that, whether I think for anybody that's listening or watching, that whether you're in real estate, you're in business, you own a business, you're a public servant like me, the lesson is really the same, is that if you want something to last, if you want a business that sustains all of the ebbs and flows that goes on, you really have to build it with intention, with the systems. The 4 key parts that Ben has described really will set you up for success. because you want to work on your business. You don't want to work in your business. Sometimes you have to do both, but really you should be working on the business. Ben, if anybody wanted to kind of reach out to you to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do it?
Yeah. Listen, if somebody wants to reach out, just send me a text. My number is 315-726-1505. And, I do have a paid coaching thing, but a lot of what we do is just helping people. Because I know if I help enough people, then, my world's going to be good enough. So we don't, a lot of times we don't charge. We just like to meet people and see if we can help them. One, if you're in real estate, I know if I help you, it's going to increase our industry, and our industry could use some of that. But just in general, the more people that we connect with and help, the better off everybody is. So shoot me a text if you want, and love to connect.
Awesome. Good stuff. Hey guys, if you're watching or listening to this, please, like, follow, share all the good stuff, subscribe on YouTube and the other streaming platforms. A new episode comes out every week. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes I have great guests like Ben, but I appreciate the follow. Any comments, let us know what you like, what you don't like, and what we can change. But with that, everybody, I appreciate you taking the time to hang out at the kitchen table. And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and have a great day.